She was left bound to the railroad tracks, helpless, her cries drowned by the roar of steel. The train thundered closer, sparks lighting the night, and no one came to stop it, until a stranger rode out of the shadows. But cutting her free was only the beginning, because saving Clara Mae Dalton meant Samuel Harlan had just made enemies who would kill to keep their secrets buried. The whistle tore through the midnight air, shrill and merciless. Steel thundered on the rails, sparks spitting as the westbound train hurtled forward, and there, bound cruelly across the iron, lay Clara Mae Dalton. Rope cut her wrists raw. Her auburn hair spilled across the gravel, dust streaking her pale face. Her hazel eyes darted wild, the whites glowing against the moonlight. From the ridge above, a lone rider rained hard, Samuel Harlan's storm-gray eyes fixed on the impossible sight below. For a moment, disbelief rooted him. But the scream that rose from Clara Mae's throat shattered it, thin but sharp against the rumble of steel. Samuel's spurs bit leather. His horse plunged downhill, dirt spraying in a cloud. The ground shook beneath hooves and iron wheels alike. He leapt clear before the horse had even stopped, boots grinding gravel as he sprinted for the tracks. The rope around Clara Mae's chest strained, her breath shallow. Samuel's knife flashed, blade sawing furiously. One knot gave. The second held. The track itself trembled with the weight of iron racing near. Clara Mae's eyes locked onto his, terror and hope tangled in one unspoken plea. "Please," she whispered, so faint it nearly vanished beneath the roar. Samuel's teeth clenched as he pulled harder, steel cutting into rope, rope cutting into flesh. The whistle wailed again, closer, deafening now. He ripped through the last knot. In one motion, he hauled her up, throwing both of them sideways, into the dirt. The train roared past, a storm of fire and steel. Dust lashed their faces, sparks rained. For one endless moment, the world was nothing but thunder. When silence finally fell, Clara Mae lay gasping against Samuel's chest, her fingers clutching the fabric of his coat like a lifeline. He looked down at her, breath ragged, sweat running into the scar by his jaw. In her hazel eyes burned not just fear, but secrets. He hadn't asked who left her there. He hadn't asked why. But as the echo of the train faded into the night, one truth became certain. Saving her was no ending. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Clara Mae's breath still came sharp and uneven as Samuel guided her toward his horse. The prairie stretched endless under a pale dawn, the last embers of the night train still echoing in their ears. She tried to stand tall, but the limp her step betrayed the strain of rope and stone. Samuel steadied her with a firm hand. "You ride with me," he said, voice low, more command than request. His storm-gray eyes searched her face, not with softness but with suspicion. "No one. Ended up tied to steel rails without enemies." Her lips trembled as she spoke her name. Clara Mae Dalton. It hung in the air heavy, like a name that carried weight beyond her own shoulders. Samuel tucked it away, silent. They rode double, her arms wrapped around his long coat. The land spread open, sagebrush rolling, stars fading into pale fire at the horizon. Samuel kept his gaze fixed forward, but he felt the tension in her grip. She wasn't holding him for safety alone. She was bracing against something deeper, some fear that still stalked her from the shadows. By sunrise, they reached a cabin crouched low between ridges, half forgotten and weather-worn. Samuel dismounted, then helped her down, his scarred hand steady. Inside, he lit a fire, the smoke curling up like a ribbon of warning into the cold morning air. Clara Mae sat by the flames, her auburn hair glowing copper in the light. Her hazel eyes followed the fire like she wanted to sink into it, as if the heat could burn away whatever memory kept her lips pressed tight. Samuel poured coffee, the bitter scent filling the silence. Finally, he spoke. "Someone meant for you to die out there. Who was it?" Clara Mae's gaze flickered. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled her dress sleeve down, covering the angry red rope marks on her wrists. Silence became her shield. Samuel leaned back, boots heavy against the floorboards. He knew the West's rules. Every silence hid a story, and every story drew blood. Outside, a hawk wheeled in the rising sun. He didn't press her further, not yet. But in the quiet, he understood one thing. Whatever Clara Mae carried, it was dangerous. And by pulling her from the tracks, he had invited that danger straight into his life. The wind picked up at noon, dry and restless, carrying dust across the cabin yard. Samuel stood at the doorway, hat low, eyes fixed on the horizon. He wasn't a man to spook easy, but the West had a way of whispering its warnings if you listened. Today, it whispered loud. Clara Mae sat inside, mending a tear in her dress with clumsy fingers. Every so often she glanced toward the door, her shoulders tight. She wanted to speak, he could tell, but fear kept her tongue knotted. The sound came before the sight, hoofbeats, slow, purposeful. Samuel's hand drifted to the revolver at his side. When the riders finally crested the ridge, dust trailing behind them, his jaw hardened. 4 men, dark hats pulled low, rifles slung easy like they owned the world. One of them carried something that made Samuel's gut twist, a stack of wanted posters. Even from distance, he recognized the face printed in black ink. Clara Mae Dalton, a price pinned to her name. He turned, voice low. "You best tell me now, Clara. What have you dragged into my camp?" Her hazel eyes shone in the dim firelight, and for the first time, she let the truth crack through. "They'll kill me for what I know. They tried once, they'll try again. And if you stand in their way," she faltered, her voice breaking, "they'll kill you too." Samuel didn't answer right away. He weighed her words like iron in his hands. Outlaws didn't leave witnesses breathing. If her face was nailed on every saloon wall, he knew 2 things. She carried a secret worth dying for, and by sheltering her, he'd just branded himself an enemy to men who never forgave. "Chewie." Riders slowed near the cabin. One called out, voice like gravel. "We're looking for a girl, auburn hair, hazel eyes. Pays good if you've seen her. Pays better if you hand her over." Samuel's eyes cut to Clara Mae, who trembled by the fire. The West never gave easy choices. You either turned your back, or you made a stand, and Samuel Harlan had never been the kind to turn. Dawn bled across the prairie, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. Samuel stood tall in front of the cabin, his revolver resting low at his hip. The outlaws had dragged Clara Mae from the fire's warmth hours earlier, rope biting her wrists once again. Now she stood on the tracks not far from where Samuel had first found her, hair wild in the wind, fear sharpened in her hazel eyes. The leader of the gang, a scarred brute with a black hat pulled low, spat tobacco into the dirt. "Step aside. Harlan, Train'll do the work for us. Save us the bullet." Samuel's storm-gray eyes narrowed. "You'll have to kill me first." His voice was calm, steady as stone. The gang laughed, rifles gleaming in the light. But Samuel didn't laugh. He'd fought too many men like them, wolves dressed in dust and leather. They always thought fear would win the day. The ground began to shake. Far off, the whistle screamed. The train was coming. Clara Mae tugged at her bindings, desperation burning her skin. Samuel stepped forward, his boots crunching against the gravel. A shot cracked the morning. Dust exploded near his feet. Another outlaw raised his rifle. Samuel drew in a blur, his revolver barking fire. One man dropped. The others cursed, scattering for cover, bullets tearing the air. Sparks flew as iron met lead, the sound of gunfire, mixing with the thunder of wheels. Clara Mae screamed his name, the sound tearing through the chaos. Samuel dove for the tracks, rolling into the gravel, gun smoking in his hand. Another outlaw rushed forward, knife flashing. Samuel swung the revolver's butt, steel meeting bone. The man fell. The train roared closer, seconds now, Clara Mae's. Eyes widened as Samuel's knife cut her bonds once more. He yanked her free, pulling her into his chest as the iron beast screamed past, drowning the battlefield in fire and smoke. When the dust cleared, only 2 outlaws remained, faces pale, nerves shattered. They turned their horses and fled, their threats fading into the dawn. Samuel held Clara Mae close, breath ragged. Her hands clutched his coat, rope burns stinging but heart still beating. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the wanted posters, not the blood, just the thunder still ringing in their ears, and the truth that by saving her again, Samuel had drawn a line that could never be erased. Smoke still drifted over the tracks, curling like ghosts in the morning air. Samuel holstered his revolver, his chest heaving. Clara Mae stood beside him, wrists raw, hair tangled, eyes blazing, not with fear now, but with something fiercer. "Why won't they let me go?" she whispered, voice trembling. Samuel studied her, his storm-gray eyes unyielding. "Because you carry something they can't afford to lose." Her gaze faltered. Then finally she told him. Clara Mae had once been forced to work for the gang, ledger keeper, numbers sharp as a razor. She'd seen everything. The bribes, the killings, the names of lawmen bought and sold. When she tried to walk away, they branded her a traitor. The railroad tracks had been their warning. Samuel listened, jaw set. He knew the truth cut both ways. Protecting her meant putting his own life on the line, but walking away meant leaving her to die, and that he could not do. The prairie dawn spread wide, painting the world in gold. Clara Mae reached for his hand, rope burns red against his rough palm. "Why save me twice?" she asked softly. Samuel's voice was quiet, almost lost in the wind. "Because out here, if we don't stand for each other, we ain't got nothing left worth standing for." She held his gaze, tears stinging her eyes. Around them lay the aftermath, spent shells, blood in the dirt, tracks still trembling from the train. Yet in the silence that followed, hope rooted itself like a stubborn weed in dry soil. Samuel looked to the horizon. He knew the gang would return. More posters, more blood. But for now, Clara Mae was alive. And sometimes in the West, survival itself was victory enough. Two figures standing side by side on a scarred stretch of land, the rising sun setting their silhouettes against the sky. And in that moment, a final truth lingered. Love in the Wild West wasn't tender. It was raw, fought for, carved out of dust and danger. But it endured. If Clara Mae's courage stirred something inside you, the voice of the story whispered, "Don't just leave this tale behind." Like this video, subscribe and ring the bell, because out here on the frontier, love may be rarer than water, but it always finds a way.